All right, welcome to the AdaptX podcast, where we have discussions with individuals who are building inclusive and accessible businesses, advocating for inclusion, or excelling in adaptive sports. Our intention is never to speak on behalf of those with disabilities, but rather amplify their ideas and share their stories so you can make a more accessible world. Today, I'm joined by Tony Jacobsen, who is many things to many people, motivational speaker, a fitness professional, author, and I'm sure more that we'll unpack in this episode. We're excited to bring his incredible story of overcoming the fears and barriers of his diagnosis to you today. So, Tony, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Brendan, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here on the AdaptX podcast.
Maybe you can start by sharing with our listeners a bit how you got into the career that you're currently in, or maybe take us back to maybe even before you were a professional, what things influenced the career path that you're now on.
Yeah, I really got into being a coach, certified personal trainer, adaptive fitness coach. I really got to this through my own journey of having a disability and learning how to embrace it to get healthier and understanding what that process took. So yeah, let me go back. My story, I was born with Osteogenesis Imperfecta, which is basically brittle bones disease. We call it OI, so I'll refer to it as OI going forward. That's a lot easier for me to say and for others to understand. So OI, I have type 1, which is a mild form of it, but I've still fractured 75-ish times around there. I've had 12 surgeries. I have steel rods in my legs. And, my journey started when I was younger. I was breaking all the time, and I used a wheelchair for most of my childhood, and then ended up on crutches as I got a little stronger in my teens. And then finally took my first unassisted steps when I was in my early 20s, when I was 24 years old. So through that journey and breaking all the time, I was left with a lot of mental barriers. Being careful was the biggest one. And so I spent after I started walking, I spent the next 20 years not being physical at all. And that led to me being very unhealthy. So because of the disability, because of my mental thoughts around the disability, I was stopped. And it led to me being very unhealthy. And I had a huge health scare when I was 42 years old, where I was told I might have had a heart attack. And so I was overweight. I was barely walking. I was in physical pain every day. And then once I had that diagnosis come through of, I looked like I had a heart attack. I didn't, by the way, thank goodness, but there was indications of it. After that happened, I realized in my own life that I needed to do something different. And I really had to figure out how to get and be healthy, because I didn't want to die, basically, and I didn't want those barriers to be there anymore. So I did the work of what it took to get over all that. And once I did, once I got through all that and I started doing things that I never thought possible for myself, I realized that I could help others do it. So I wrote my book. I got my certification as a trainer. I was like, what can I do to help others that have my disability and have other disabilities, have other limited mobility, and have these same sort of barriers? How can I help other people get through this too? So that has led all the way up to today, where now I'm certified. I have my online fitness program. I do one-on-one coaching, virtual, all around the world, in person. And also, just in addition to that, just getting out and encouraging and motivating people with disabilities. So even if I don't train you, I'm always encouraging people with disabilities to think differently and to think about think about how to get moving in the right way. So that's the beginning and the end of it right there of my story of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the goal ultimately with anything that's revolving around inclusive fitness or adaptive fitness is to move people closer to the recommended levels of daily physical activity, which is typically not always met, not only by people with disabilities, but maybe exacerbated by those with disabilities. They face obviously more barriers to being active. Before we dive into your adaptive fitness platform, which I know we'll touch upon, and your book, what was essential for you transitioning from mobility with crutches to independently walking? What was that rehabilitation process or strengthening process like?
Yeah, for me, it was just time, first of all, because with OI, after puberty, the fractures become a little less. So fortunate for me, and with my type being not so severe, I was able to just start to get stronger, which led me to the crutches and spending more time on the crutches. And then for me personally, to make that big jump was a surgery where I had, because I had rods in my legs from an early age. And so in my, gosh, it must have been in high school years, I had broken my right femur that had a rod in it, and that rod got bent when I had that fracture. So it was bent at like a almost 30-degree angle. And so they didn't adjust it at that time, and it was left. And so the next few years I spent, legs were very much different in length. I had to use the crutches because I just couldn't walk right. And so when I turned 24, that's when the doctor was like, you know what, we got to replace this rod. It's time to do it. And so when I had that surgery, made my legs the same length, and basically that was the point at which the doctor was like, okay, it's time to get on your feet and start walking, because now you have the mobility and the functionality to be able to do it. So that's what happened for me. And it was, you know, it was slow going at the beginning. I was still on and off the crutches, but I got stronger, and I did a little bit of rehab at that time, like physical therapy, but it wasn't too much. At least it got me to the point of just understanding how to walk, because I just didn't know how to do it at that point without the crutches. So it was just a natural kind of thing of me getting stronger just in my legs in general, and having that final surgery that was like, okay, now your legs are the same length. This is a huge deal.
Yeah. Did you find any ways to be active when you were a youth, either during your time in a wheelchair or when you transitioned into crutches? Did you find sports or fitness that was suitable for you?
Yeah, I personally did wheelchair basketball and wheelchair tennis. Those were like the two kind of sports that I was involved with. But again, it was very much, you know, trying not to break bones. So no matter what I did, even doing those things, there was still a lot of fear. So I did them to an extent, but I did them to what was, you know, what I felt was good for myself. So it kept me moving. You know, and I would do some, like when I was very young, I was like, I participated in Special Olympics and I did wheelchair racing and stuff of that nature. But then later there was wheelchair basketball and wheelchair tennis as well. So I would do those activities. But again, it was very minimal just because I was always being careful and trying not to hurt myself.
Yeah, knowing what you do now about adaptive fitness and maybe the literature on OI has expanded or improved over the last 15, 20 years. Would you have done anything different? Would you have tried to go to a gym when you were younger? Was strength training safe, but you just didn't really know how to approach it?
Yeah, that was a huge deal. And that's almost part of why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Because even, you know, 10 years ago when I started getting into my own fitness journey and I started doing research, there was nobody talking about it in the OI community. And so I was struggling to find people that were even trying to have the conversation within OI. So I could imagine back then when I was younger, because that was like when I was 42. So I can imagine when I was 24-ish in my early 20s. First of all, I didn't know anybody with OI, and any of the research, there was barely anything. Nobody was talking about how fitness would help. Now my doctor, he would encourage me to move. He encouraged me to get up as much as possible and get moving. Again, I struggled with the fear of it, so I didn't listen as much as I should have. But you know, I do know that if there would have been something there to tell me, look, if you just do some fitness that's proper for you and you do it in the right way, then you can succeed and you can get stronger. I just didn't have that resource. So that was another big push for me doing what I do and writing my book and getting it out there, because I do feel, and it is important. And now it's great because now, since I've been talking about it, the conversation has been becoming a conversation within my community, and that's really important, and that's a big accomplishment for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about the OI literature, but I would imagine that the orthopedic benefits of strength training in terms of improving bone health and bone strength, like I wonder if that would carry over to someone with OI in a similar way. Maybe during that portion of puberty when you're beginning to become stronger, And like you said, your motor skills and your strength is improving. I wonder if supplementing it with some strength training that's kind of catered to that population and the level you're at would like expedite those improvements even further.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it would. And I think there's just not enough, the conversation's just starting around it. And I hope that they start to do more actual research around that. That would be great because I absolutely agree. And I do think that it would help because we know you need to do resistance training to strengthen bone. Like we know that those things work in a regular bone, right? So then when you're talking about an OI bone, now we're not sure just because of the science behind OI. Yes, we can develop more bone, but it's just not good bone, right? That's kind of what OI is in basic terms. So, but you know what? Why don't we don't have research around it. So we
Yeah.
can't say definitively that it doesn't work. All
Yeah.
I know is for me in my 40s, by doing what I did, um, I know that I've gotten stronger. I know that I've gained balance. I know that I've gained strength. Can I say my bones are stronger? Maybe not necessarily because I haven't like stayed up on my bone density, but my bone density hasn't decreased. So like I know personally I have some indicators that show that this does work. But I would love, and perhaps in the future it will become a conversation, and through research and some dedicated research around that age range would be great.
Yeah, it would be super interesting to see some longitudinal stuff because I mean, in the older population, bone density decreases. So the fact that you're maintaining in of itself is a win.
Yeah,
Because we know that as people get older, bone density decreases. So it's sometimes when we're communicating with our older clients, progress isn't as fast as the younger ones, but we're typically trying to remind them that not making progress is not regressing, and that in of itself is a win because as you get older you lose muscle mass and bone density, and so if we can prevent that, it's essential to longevity. So yeah, it would be super cool to see if OI responds in any specific way to strength training. I would imagine with it being the potential to be a low impact exercise that it might not be quote unquote quite as dangerous as like a sport like wheelchair basketball because you don't have the impact and the collision that you might have with a competitive sport. So
yeah, absolutely.
what was the influence for your book, or kind of what was that process like? When did you decide that you wanted to write a book, and how did you go about doing so?
Well, I was always told you should write a book, like just from the people around me, just seeing what I was doing in life and whatnot. And I just never had the impetus or the through line for what it would be. I always thought, oh, well, I'll write a memoir when I'm older. So that sort of kind of idea came. But after I went through my personal transformation, my physical transformation, and what all of that brought to me in my life, it finally kind of fell into place where it was like, you know what? I know what story I need to tell now. I know how I can use this book to tell my story and help other people. Like there was like all of the pieces of the puzzle of what I feel is the importance of a book. They all came together and it was just time for me to do it. So I was able to really focus on the physical aspects of my life. That's kind of the through line of my book, Disable Your Disability. So it's like I was able to look at that, and the first half is my story, and then the second half is a how to, and I really just kind of share like these are the tactics, these are the strategies that you can use to do what I did. So that's kind of how the book came to be.
How long did that process take? I guess, I mean, obviously it's a lifelong process because you don't have a story without experiencing all that, but
Yeah.
maybe from like the time that you sat down to write something to the time where it was released, do you
Yeah,
recall kind of what that process was like?
yeah, it was about a 4-year process from hey, you really got to do this. And then the last 6 months prior is when it really came to be. I mean, I sat down and churned this thing out in about 4 or 5 months because it was really focused and I knew exactly what I wanted to say. So it was pretty quick when it came down to it because it was very clear of what the message was going to be in the book.
Yes.
So now I totally understand. I'm on the other side of writing a book and I know the process. But for anyone out there who, and I always encourage people that have disabilities, have a story to tell, I encourage you to share your stories. Like, really, even if it's not in a book, like, share your story about what you've been going through, because we need to get the word out there and let more people know. But for me, it was very clear once I decided this is the theme of the book, this is what I want to share. So it was a pretty quick process.
Yeah. That's essentially the goal of this podcast, for me to have conversations that challenge my biases, teach me something new, and then hopefully listeners form their own takeaway or they find ways to apply it to their own life. We've just have like kind of a running Google Doc, me and my team, of just like things that stick out after these conversations or during these conversations, takeaways that people can apply across different industries. So maybe it becomes some sort of book after we have dozens of these conversations. Maybe it just becomes blog posts, but it's like sharing people's experiences and lived experiences is essential to me. And in the same way that, like you said, it took you 4 years, but really only 4 months of like targeted work. It took me 6 to 12 months maybe to write my course, but it took 6 years prior to that of different experiences, different trial and error to come to the conclusions that we have, and then share those through the course. So it's like maybe a book's only a 1 year process, but it's a lifetime process, I guess. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
did COVID influence your direction in terms of like how you disseminate content, whether it's the online fitness stuff? Did that transition that a lot of people started offering remote services kind of benefit you in any way, I guess?
It benefited me simply because that was the direction I was going to begin with. I realized that, especially with my disability, we're very few and far between since it's very rare. So when I was starting to reach out online is where I really went in head first to touch base with my community. And so everyone was online. So I started building my business online. And when I built my online, the online fitness club, I like to call it a club because it's a lot more fun than a platform. So my fitness club is a lot more fun. And when I started building that, I'm like, no, this is the way I want to deliver it. Even in today's day and age, now that people are starting to get back together, I'm still going to do it this way. And I still want to continue this method because I want to reach people around the world. So not only with my disability, it's very few and far between, and it's great because I do have members on there from all around the world, Europe, India, United States, Australia. So it's great because I can, train and coach people from around the world through the platform. And, it's great. I can go out and do this in person too, but and I have had a few clients come through, but for the most part, my business plan is to keep it online, figure out the best ways to deliver it that way so that I can reach more people and, reach them where they're at, because that's another piece of making sure it's accessible, making sure that, anybody can get to this, because there's people in rural parts of the country that can't even get to, maybe their town where they could find training or get somebody. So, hey, you can connect with me on the internet. I know you've got an internet connection, so let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That global impact is incredible. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. There's obviously huge benefits of being online too. My experience running a brick and mortar facility, it's expensive. It's obviously
Yeah.
a huge piece, and the internet not only reduces that barrier to accessibility, but it can be a essential part of a business model on a kind of a low cost option to reach a lot of people. You mentioned not having a lot of connections with other individuals with OI growing up, but what is that representation like now that you've connected with others through, I assume Facebook is a strong way to find those groups, but what have you learned through, I guess, connecting with other individuals with OI?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I've learned is to make that connection. So it was when I was growing up, I knew one other person that had OI. She had a more severe version of it, and she was the only one, and her and I thought we were the only two people in the world with OI. So we, spent our childhood connected, and then we lost contact. And but she was the only person that I really knew that had OI. Then there were a few people popped up like in the celebrity world, very few, one or two. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then the movie Unbreakable came out, right? And that was like a big thing, kind of an introduction to Osteogenesis Imperfecta. He did his best. It was okay. It was an okay introduction, but it made me think, oh yeah, other people should know more about this and think about it. So that kind of started my started my journey into learning a little bit more. But then when I start after I wrote the book and I was like, I really need to connect with my community. Even before I wrote the book, I wanted to connect with the community. Um, Going to Facebook, that was the first spot. And then finding the organizations that were dealing with it. So there's one big one in the United States, another one in Europe, a couple others, but that was another piece of it too, was reaching out to them and trying to connect to the community. So doing the social, reaching out to the organizations was very important. Now I know a ton of people with OI, and it's great because now it's even helped me to learn more about how I can help the community and learning more about, because for me, when I started even training, it was like, okay, I'm looking for OIers that are like me, that have type 1, maybe have the same amount of breaks, kind of are in the same abilities level or spectrum. But now, since I've been training and working with all different types of OI, it's been great because now I can help a wider variety of people. And so being connected, learning more. I mean, I'm meeting new people every single day and they're coming and checking out the platform. So it's great. It's just been so expansive for me, even because then it pushes me to learn even more about what I'm working on. When it comes to training somebody with OI or any, limited mobility sort of situation.
Yeah, when we talk to people that want to start more inclusive and accessible programs and they ask how you go about getting those first clients, it's not the answer they want, but it's usually find the organizations that already serve these populations, find ways to connect with them, offer your services, establish some validity in that way, establish some social proof, and demonstrate that you can help them. And then it kind of just grows organically through that. So there's no easy marketing scheme that gets it. Sometimes it's just direct outreach to the people you want to serve and a genuine interest in helping them and demonstrating how you can help them, which it sounds like you've done pretty successfully.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is connecting to the community and just starting. You just got to get, the one, the two, and then really it's word of mouth at that point. Because then people say, oh no, he really does know what he's doing, or she really knows what she's doing. And then the word of mouth will help to start to spread that.
How often or how long have you been doing motivational or educational speaking?
That came really even before the book. I was doing some motivational speaking because I've been a DJ for many years. And so through the DJing, I had a few opportunities because a few of my friends they knew about my disability. I was very much not about my disability before, when I was unhealthy and I was really in that denial phase of like, I'm not disabled. I don't think about it. It's not part of me, et cetera, et cetera. So I was very much in that phase, but still some people knew about the fact that I had a disability and they were encouraged and inspired by the fact that I was successful as a DJ in doing that. So I got a few talks through that and I realized, oh wow, I love speaking in general. I love performing. I'm a DJ and I'm a rapper. I'm an MC. I've done like hip hop music, all this stuff throughout my life. So through that, I love being in front of crowds. I love entertaining. I love motivating and encouraging. So as I started to get those talks through that method, that led me down the path of now, okay, well, how can I do more of this? And then again, through my whole transformation, writing the book and understanding, wow, I have a bigger message that really can impact people in a big way. In a big way, not only people with disabilities, but also just the public in general. So that's how really it pushed me. It pushed me to say, hey, where can I get out and share this message of resilience, of overcoming, of thinking differently, thinking positive. So that's kind of how that was formed. And then when the book came out, I mean, it really was, it's in support of the book. It's like getting out there and sharing the message to let people know, hey, I got this book, come check it out. This is a short talk I'm going to do that's talking about, my story, but, come and read the book and you're going to get more.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been progressing.
You mentioned at the first part of of that comment there that you were kind of in denial about your disability. It's a conversation that we've had with most of our guests, but how do you feel about the term disabled, or how would you like people to refer to you? Not that they necessarily have to say, "Oh, that's Tony, he's disabled," but like, does that term offend you in any way? Do you prefer something else? What do you think about like person first language, like individual with disability versus disabled individual? Do you have any opinions on terminology?
Yeah, my opinion is it's all semantics and that stuff doesn't matter. So, I think a lot of people use that as a I want to say as a crutch, right? They use it maybe as an excuse, and I've come up against some people like that because I'll use both and I'll interchange them. And you can call me whatever you want. It doesn't change how I feel about myself or what I'm going to accomplish in this world. And that's what I try and encourage other people with disabilities to think about is like, it's all semantics, man. It's just words. So you can put whatever meaning to that word that you want, but at the end of the day, by trying to change the way somebody refers to you, what is that going to do? Are you accomplishing what you need to accomplish in life just on your own? Because guess what? Everyone's going to have their opinion, and everyone's going to have the way they want to refer to you. So don't worry about that stuff. For me, I will say it if I need to say it. If I feel that it's important to that immediate conversation, then I'll talk about it. But otherwise, it is what it is. And, it really took me a lot of years to get to that, to understand, but it was a lot of introspection and understanding that I needed to do some personal growth through that because I was in denial for many years. And that denial just came from fear and from me not understanding myself and me not having confidence in who I was, et cetera, et cetera. So I remember having those conversations of saying, hey, don't call me that. Hey, don't do this. But that didn't matter. What I needed to change was what was inside of me and how I felt I presented to the world. So once I gained that confidence, once I understood that it's all based on who I am as a person, all of that stuff kind of went to the wayside. So it's all semantics. Don't worry about what we're calling it and the words and stuff. That stuff is just wasting our energy, and where we could be focusing that on more important things to actually help not only ourselves progress, but our community progress.
Very eloquently said. I think communication, though, is still a big barrier. One of our things is to try to like normalize the inclusion of people with disabilities and in our fitness environment on a small scale, but hopefully it becomes normalized on a larger macro scale. But I think oftentimes people don't have exposure to disabilities and they don't have these conversations, these candid conversations that you and I are having. So they don't know what to say. So instead, they just don't say anything at all. So they avoid interacting with you because they don't want to offend you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have experiences growing up that kind of resembled that? And how do you think we get to a point where younger individuals are more comfortable interacting with people with disabilities?
Yeah, I think it's just having those conversations. And so it's for me and what I'm seeing and what I've been through, it really is a change for the people with disabilities. So a lot of people with disabilities feel like the outside society needs to change. And that is true. There's a lot of conversation that's happening over there. But guess what? We are half of that conversation too. So there is an aura that we put out there. Are we approachable? Do people feel comfortable talking with us? Do they feel comfortable asking questions? Because I see a lot of people that will get mad and they get angry at certain things, and then that just turns people off. So it's like a 50-50 conversation, and that's how I see it. So there has to be a little give and take on both sides. People have to be willing to ask questions. People have to be willing to accept that they're being asked questions. And so I think that both sides need to work on it. And again, it's all individual and depending on the situation. But at those moments, people that don't have disabilities, look, you got to feel comfortable. You got to feel comfortable in your situation and being able to talk about it. People with disabilities, same thing. You got to feel comfortable. You got to feel okay to answer questions, to talk a little bit more about what you got going on. And I think if we do more of that, if we think of it more of a 50-50 conversation, man, that could help so much. And just like, for lack of a better term, just cool out. Just like cool out, just have fun. If people just realize, life isn't that serious, like we can all just have some fun, put a smile on our face, be happy. put some more joy in life. These types of things will get easier for people as well.
Yeah, and that's why we say at the beginning of the podcast, like I don't intend to speak on anyone's behalf, but hearing you say that, I'm not just looking to confirm my biases, but I do think it's a two-way street. And the people at our gym with disabilities, they're wonderful and they're easily approachable, and our members interact with them. And I think that has kind of lowered the barrier for a lot of our members in terms of how they see disability. So I think if there's more environments like that where people with and without disabilities seamlessly coexist, then more people are kind of exposed to this idea that there's a lot more similarities and differences. So that's where it's one of my driving like incentives behind maybe trying to have more gyms is to create more environments like this, or to educate fitness professionals so they can take these principles and apply them in their gym so they can start to create those communities. Because I don't think those conversations happen naturally unless they're kind of facilitated in some way where people are sharing like a common experience or a common interest, and in this case, it being fitness. So I think fitness, not to oversell the importance of it, but I think it can be a great vehicle to introduce people with and without disabilities and kind of demonstrate how they're similar in many ways.
Yeah. And if I just can comment on that, I think you're absolutely right. For like a gym facility, for any facility, really, if you think about, someone's putting a gym together, and then if you bring up the idea of someone with a disability coming to the gym, a lot of people get surprised, right? They're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And it's like, I agree with you. We need to have that conversation like kind of normalized, where it's like, well, just always think about that. Just always think about like, well, how can someone who's using a wheelchair use this piece of equipment? Like that should always just be in the conversation, as opposed to when it comes up, it's a surprise for people where it's like, oh, wow, I didn't think about accessibility. Well, you should always be thinking about accessibility no matter what, because even if it's not meaning someone that's using a wheelchair, it could be someone using a mobility aid. Oh, can someone that uses crutches get up here, or uses a cane or a walker or whatever they're needing at that moment? Can they get in here to utilize this? And that's another piece of it, is a lot of people that are in the fitness industry don't think people with disabilities can work out or should work out, or, they have this weird kind of thought about it. It's like, no, we do. We need it in our lives. It's actually going to improve no matter what the disability is or what the impairment is. There's always great stuff that comes from fitness. So again, yeah, I love what you're doing, because it's kind of normalizing this conversation and bringing it to the forefront, where we're just thinking about it all the time. It's just part of the conversation.
Yeah, accessibility benefits everyone. Like you said, it might be the thought process might be for someone in a wheelchair, but maybe someone after a knee replacement who needs a little more space to get onto a piece of equipment or move around. Or if I'm guiding someone with a visual impairment through the gym, we need a wider walkway. So it's like you can go through these scenarios when you're planning out the layout of your gym, and you can think to yourself, can someone who can't see access everything? Can someone who can't hear access all the programming? Can someone who can't walk access this? So it's just a very simple thought exercise. And some of these discussions that I've had with like accessibility experts, the one that we're releasing, I guess when this one comes out, it will have been the previous week. But Brad McCannell was talking about how you don't have to serve everyone, but you have to take small steps towards trying to accommodate as many people as possible. Um, as a business, you're not going to be able to cater to every person in the world, and that's fine. But as long as you kind of are making those steps to making it more accessible and inclusive, and when the issues come up or when the accessibility barriers come up, having a response and addressing those problems is important. So, one other question that we've asked some of our guests is kind of related to the inspiration narrative that we sometimes see with disability, where everything that someone with a disability does has to be perceived and publicized as inspirational. Do you have any thoughts on that as a whole, or are you familiar with that kind of concept or that fallacy?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've got a somewhat different view on this, because I feel that inspiration is good. And I think everybody should view inspiration as a good thing. And so, unfortunately, in my community, in the disability community, there's been this tag put on called inspiration porn. And it's like, it just rubs me the wrong way every time I hear that, because you're putting a negative on a positive. it's like toxic positivity. We're tagging a negative to something that's actually really, really good for people. So when it comes to the inspiration talk, I try to encourage people to be an inspiration. I say, look, you want to be an inspiration for people. It doesn't matter if you do something very small and it inspires somebody. That's actually a really good thing, because just in the world in general, we want to shine positivity out to people. So if I can encourage someone and inspire someone by doing something that seems menial in my life, that's actually a pretty cool thing, because now they're going to make a positive change in their life that's then going to affect someone in their life. And then that's going to affect someone, and it's a ripple effect. So that's kind of number one. Number two is this: look, I don't get to choose who I inspire. None of us do. We don't get to choose who we inspire. So it's not really up to us. We just kind of got to live our lives, do our things, and we do. Whoever comes up to me, trust. There's been some people I inspire and some people that I don't inspire. And that's just how it goes. I don't get to choose and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go over to this guy today and I'm going to inspire him. I'm going to go to this lady today and I'm going to inspire her. That's not up to me. It's really up to the individual who's watching the things that I do. And so it's really great when you have that perspective, because then you just kind of live your life. You spread positivity. People get to, make positive changes in their life, and they get to be inspired from whatever you're doing, be it menial, be it a big task, major, minor, whatever it is. As long as I'm inspiring someone to make a positive change in their life, that's my focus. That's my goal. And so I always encourage people to kind of leave that conversation alone. I hear it all the time. They don't want to be an inspiration. They don't want to. And I'm like, man, you're missing out on a great opportunity. You're missing out on a great opportunity to make a positive change in someone's life for doing nothing. And you even say it's nothing. So that's kind of my take on it. I know it's really controversial just kind of in my community, but I don't care, because I want people to think differently.
I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be controversial, but I think like what you mentioned with it, as long as it inspires action, is an essential piece to it. When you see just people on Facebook, like it's almost belittling to some people, I guess. I think some people feel offended when they're just trying to do tasks that maybe at one point in their life was really simple, and now it's harder for them because of a disability or an acquired disability. I think sometimes people get frustrated when someone will comment on that because they remember how easy it used to be, and they don't want to like kind of be belittled or reminded of that. So I think being inspirational, as long as it's inspiring people to actually take change, when it's belittling or if it's lowering the expectation that people have for individuals with disabilities, if it's kind of perpetuating this narrative that they're less than, then that's when I guess it might become a little bit of a issue. But obviously, I just listen to how you all describe it and how our various guests describe it, and it might be similar to kind of the terminology. It's a case by case basis, where some people want to be inspirational and others don't. But it's just it's an interesting conversation to have.
I don't think we're required to be an inspiration, but I just, want everybody to understand that if you have that possibility, then be the inspiration for somebody.
Yeah. And it's probably not, there's probably some parallels between that and like the motivational speaking you do. Your goal with the motivational speaking is to inspire people to overcome whatever barriers that they face. So I would assume there's a lot more carryover between with that occupation or with that portion of your job, the speaking.
Yeah, definitely.
This is a question that we ask most of the guests towards the end of the episodes, but what do you think needs to be done, maybe for the industry as a whole, or to make fitness more accessible for people with intellectual and physical disabilities?
Yeah, I think it kind of touches on what we talked about earlier, where it's like just making that part of the conversation. So people that are within the fitness industry, just understanding that that population does exist, that people on all levels of ability should have access to this, to fitness, to better nutrition, to movement, I call it proper movement. I call it our personal peak performance. Everybody has their personal peak performance. So I think within the fitness industry, it's really important for people to understand that it's not just, looking for or helping just people that, already have something full mobility and you're going to take them to the next level. Of course, you're going to help people that way. But I think just opening up and keeping that conversation of like, there's all abilities, there's all levels of ability within fitness. It's not like you have to be at a certain level to then start getting involved in fitness. Fitness and movement and all of that, which we help people with, it starts at any level. It starts at the levels of someone who barely moves, and like we have to remember that. I think a lot of people within the industry think, well, people have to be at a certain level. And then on the other side, people with disabilities, it's like you have to, you don't have to be at any specific level to start. Right now is the right time to start. So I think if we, keep that conversation going, I think will help to improve the conversation and improve the environment again, where it creates that comfortability for people to feel like, oh yeah, I can start now. And then someone on the fitness side to be like, oh yeah, I can help somebody that's at this level. I think we can meet in the middle if we do that.
Yeah, there's always an entry point to exercise, and it's our responsibility to help people find that, so they can be safe, they can be confident, they can feel comfortable with what they're working on, and being comfortably challenged over time to continue to make improvements. What do you hope the next 5 years looks like for you, or maybe even the next year?
Man, the next year, I want to keep growing Unbreakable Body. That's the online fitness club. I want to keep growing that. I want to keep getting out and, spreading the message of encouragement to get more people moving. I personally, I'm writing my second book now. So that's going to be coming out in 2024. And I'm going to be working on some other programs that are bigger and helping other communities, other disabled communities. I hope to see this conversation not be something that we have to focus on in 5 years, right? Like it's just going to be part of the canon that is the fitness environment and the fitness industry, where it's like, yeah, this is just part of it. In 5 years, we should be able to do that. That's my hope, is that in 5 years, it's just part of the conversation. But, I'm going to keep encouraging and helping as many people as I can along the way, through my books, through my talks, through my online programs, through anywhere where I can get in connection with people to help uplift them and encourage them.
Yeah, well, Tony will definitely let us know if there's any ways that we can kind of amplify those projects that you're working on. We'll include a link to the book in our next newsletter that goes out in a couple Wednesdays. The podcast will be released in the next week or so to hopefully spread. You had a lot of beautiful comments in this episode. I really appreciated a lot of what you said, and definitely appreciate the time that you took today to talk with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this, and I love what you're doing. And however I can support you too. I love what you're doing. I love the platform.
Thank you for listening to the AdaptX podcast. Our effort to amplify the ideas of our guests and create more inclusive and accessible industries is futile unless these episodes reach a larger audience. If you enjoyed our discussion today, please leave us a rating or a review on whichever platform you use. And if you would like to learn more about AdaptX, the course that we teach to health and fitness professionals and the projects that our organization is working on, you can subscribe to our newsletter through our website, www.adaptx.org. Until next Monday.